Welcome to FearBound Stories. Please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now let's begin. Ethan McKay had driven the same route to his parents' rural home for nearly a decade. Nestled deep in West Virginia's Appalachian backwoods, the winding roads were familiar and comforting. But this time, a late-night family emergency and a GPS notification changed everything. It was just past midnight when his phone buzzed. Faster route available. Save 18 minutes via Hollow Creek Road. Ethan hesitated. Hollow Creek? He'd heard of it, mostly from his grandfather, who used to tell eerie stories about the place. Supposedly, the road had been closed for years, isolated after a series of accidents and mysterious disappearances. But curiosity and the urgency of the call pushed reason aside. He clicked accept. The road was almost immediately strange. There were no signs, no streetlights, and thick fog pressed against his windshield like a living thing. His headlights barely pierced the gloom as tall, gnarled trees bent toward the narrow one-lane path. The GPS kept repeating, "Continue for 7 miles." About 2 miles in, the road surface changed from cracked asphalt to something more like gravel. Then, dirt. The forest felt heavier here. The trees stood too still, like they were holding their breath. Ethan's radio began emitting a low static, then a voice whispered through the speakers. "You shouldn't be here." Startled, he turned the volume down, only to realize the radio had been off the entire time. He passed a rotting wooden sign, barely legible. "Hollow Creek, do not enter." The paint was faded, but the warning was clear. Ethan's unease turned to dread when he saw her. A figure stood in the middle of the road, a barefoot woman in a white nightgown soaked to the skin. She didn't move. Her face was obscured by long black hair, and her arms hung limply at her sides. He slammed the brakes. Heart pounding, he stared. The woman didn't react. Then slowly she tilted her head, almost in curiosity, and raised one trembling arm to point at the forest beside her. Ethan threw the car in reverse. But when he looked in the rearview mirror, she was already behind him, closer than before. Her head now tilted to the other side. Her mouth was open wide as if screaming, but there was no sound. Panicking, Ethan floored the accelerator, veering around her. The wheels spun in the wet dirt, flinging mud, but he powered through. Trees blurred past as he tore through the winding road, only to realize the road was looping. No matter how far he drove, he kept passing the same landmarks. The twisted oak with the missing branch, the broken mile marker, the decaying red mailbox. Even the woman, still pointing, reappeared, always just ahead. Sweat poured down Ethan's face as he checked his phone. No signal. The GPS now showed only a spinning wheel. No map, no directions. Then the car stalled. Silence fell like a hammer. Ethan sat frozen, the engine dead, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. From the tree line, a whisper slithered out. "Turn around." He dared a glance at the rearview mirror. She was inside the back seat. Ethan jumped out of the car, stumbling into the woods, branches clawing at his skin. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to get away. Hours seemed to pass before he collapsed, gasping beside a dry creek bed. When he awoke, it was morning. The road was gone, so was his car. A passing hiker found him wandering the woods hours later, disoriented, shivering, unable to explain what happened. The only trace of that night was his phone, clutched in his hand. The GPS app was still open. The screen read, "Recalculating." In the town of Maple Hollow, every graduating class from Westmore High dared someone to enter the old Milner house. The abandoned Victorian sat at the edge of the woods like a wound that never healed. Black shutters rotting, roof half caved in, windows like empty eyes. Stories swirled around it for decades. A family murder-suicide, satanic rituals in the basement, children who went in and never came out. but no one ever found proof. It was just a tradition, a game. For Shane, it wasn't supposed to be anything more than that. At 17, Shane was the class clown, loud, reckless, always out to impress. So when his friends dared him to not only go in, but spend the entire night alone in the Milner house, he didn't hesitate. He live-streamed it, backpack loaded with snacks, a flashlight, power bank, and a GoPro strapped to his chest. Shane strolled into the overgrown yard like he was walking into a haunted attraction. "This house is gonna be my Airbnb tonight," he joked to the camera, spinning around for effect. The front door creaked open too easily. Dust clung to the air. The wood beneath his feet groaned with every step. Strange symbols were spray-painted on the walls, not the kind you'd see from teens trying to be edgy. These looked deliberate, ancient. The chat filled with laughing emojis and ghost jokes. "Bet he poops himself by midnight," someone typed. But at 1:23 a.m. the stream went silent. No screams, no glitch, just darkness. That's when his friends realized something was wrong. The next morning, the police were called. They found Shane's backpack just inside the door. The GoPro was shattered. His flashlight, untouched, lay next to it, still working. But Shane, gone. It took 2 days of combing the woods with dogs and drones before they found him, curled in a fetal position under a collapsed shed a half-mile from the house. Mud-caked, eyes wide, silent. He didn't speak for 3 months. When he finally did, it was to a psychologist. What he said made no sense, but the fear in his eyes made the doctors listen. He talked about waking up in the basement, chained to a chair, surrounded by whispers that came from nowhere. He said the house wasn't empty. Not really. It was full of people who didn't move right. They watched him from behind walls. They knew his name. One of them spoke in his father's voice and told him to stay for dinner. He said there was a room full of mirrors that showed him versions of himself where he was already dead. The psychologist chalked it up to a psychotic break, maybe drug-induced. But Shane hadn't used anything. No alcohol, no pills. One night, his mother came home to find him standing in the backyard, staring up at the treetops. He turned to her and whispered, "They followed me home." She didn't know what he meant until the cameras in the living room began picking up voices at 3:15 a.m. every night. Whispers, breathing. A man saying Shane's name in a voice they didn't recognize. The stream footage from that night still exists. It ends at 1:23 a.m. If you slow it down frame by frame just before the static takes over, you can see something standing behind Shane. It doesn't look human, and it's smiling. Marcus Langston had just landed a night shift as a junior security officer at Northgate Biomedical Research Center, a gleaming, heavily guarded facility on the outskirts of Denver. The pay was good, the hours quiet. He was told most of the building was administrative, with a few classified labs on the basement levels. His job? Stay in the control room, monitor the screens, log any unusual activity. That's it. There was just one rule: never open the door to B3. The supervisor, an older guard named Paul, made it crystal clear on Marcus's first night. He even pointed at the door on the surveillance feed, a thick steel entryway at the end of a long, sterile corridor on basement level B3. The feed labeled it simply B314. "No one goes in. No one comes out. You see anything on that camera, you don't move, you log it, you call me, that's all." Marcus laughed nervously. "What's even down there?" Paul paused. "Not your concern, just do your shift, don't touch B3. For a week it was mind-numbingly uneventful. Cameras flickered, lights buzzed, janitors came and went. Then, one night, around 3:12 a.m., something strange happened. Camera 14, the one facing B314, flickered to static. When it came back, the door was slightly open. Not wide, not dramatic, just enough to notice. Marcus stared, confused. He checked the activity log. Nothing. No entries, no access clearance. The system showed the door had never been opened. He radioed Paul. No answer. Curiosity, or maybe something deeper, why he pulled at him. Against protocol, against the gnawing instinct in his gut, Marcus took his keycard and made his way down. The elevator creaked as it descended, B1, B2, B3. The hallway was ice cold. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Silence stretched, oppressive and still. He approached the door to B314. The security pad blinked red, locked. But as he reached to double-check it, it clicked open. A whisper of air escaped as if the room had been sealed for years. Marcus stepped inside. It was a lab, but nothing like the ones upstairs. The walls were metal, no windows, no computers, just a single chair in the center of the room, bolted to the floor, and dozens of security monitors lining the walls. Each monitor showed different places: a playground, a hospital hallway, a child's bedroom, a war zone, an empty field at night. And on every screen, there was a figure. It wasn't the same each time, sometimes a man, sometimes a woman, sometimes a thing. But they all had one thing in common. They were looking directly at the camera. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him. The monitors flickered. Now every screen showed Marcus standing in the room, but in each version, something was standing behind him. He spun, nothing. Then the lights went out. He doesn't remember what happened next. They found him hours later, unconscious in the elevator, blood on his uniform, fingernail scratches down his arms, some not his. The footage from that night was wiped. Only one file remained. A 3-second clip of Marcus in the room staring at the monitors. Behind him, something with impossibly long arms stood just inside the shadows. Northgate transferred him to another facility. He quit the job 2 days later and moved 3 states away. But even now, every so often when Marcus watches TV or looks at his phone screen, he says he sometimes sees a reflection that isn't his. And the door, B314, is sealed shut. But every now and then, the red light on the keypad blinks green. Detective Laura Green was the kind of cop who didn't believe in ghosts, curses, or coincidences. She believed in people, and in the terrible things they sometimes did to one another. But there was one case she never talked about, one that changed the way she looked at the forest, and at mirrors. It started with a 911 call, October 16th. Mist rolling thick through Gresham Pines, a stretch of Oregon forest known for its remoteness, and the handful of people who had vanished there over the past 20 years. Most were written off as hikers who got lost. Some were suspected to be victims of foul play. But this was different. The caller was male, his voice shaky on the verge of hysteria. "I'm not alone out here," he said. "I made a mistake, a huge mistake. I thought I could fix it, but it's too late. They don't want me to leave." The operator asked where he was. All they got were GPS coordinates, and then the call ended, not dropped, cut, mid-sentence, like something silenced him. Laura was assigned to the case, and the coordinates immediately bothered her. The location wasn't anywhere near a trail. It was 3 miles deep, past overgrowth, across a dry creek bed, near no roads, cabins, or utility lines. Worse, the phone was a burner, no ID, no digital trace. She requested a search team, but response time was delayed due to weather warnings and limited availability. Impatient and concerned, she set off alone. She didn't tell dispatch. She didn't want them thinking she was chasing shadows. By the time she reached the trailhead, the late afternoon sun was barely visible through the fog. The deeper she hiked, the more unnatural the forest felt. Pine needles blanketed the ground so thickly that even her own footsteps were muffled. There were no birds, no insects, just silence, and her growing sense that something was wrong. Nearly 2 hours in, she stumbled upon a clearing, too symmetrical, too empty. In the center, a half-burned fire pit, crushed energy bar wrappers, a blood-smeared tarp, and a phone. Screen cracked, showing a frozen lock screen with a smeared handprint across it. She radioed in coordinates, but static answered her. And then she heard it. Faint, human, help me. She froze. The voice was male and familiar. It matched the 911 caller's voice profile. Laura drew her weapon and flashlight, sweeping the woods. No movement. "Who's there?" she shouted. Silence. Then again, closer. "Help, please." The voice never came from the same direction twice. It circled her, always just behind a tree or around a bend. Her instinct screamed trap, but something else, something primal, kept pulling her forward. And then she saw it. Not a person, not a structure. A mirror. Tall, freestanding, ornate like something out of a Victorian parlor. The glass shimmered unnaturally, like it had its own backlight. There was no reason for it to be there, no tracks, no signs of anyone dragging it in, no power source. And yet it reflected. Laura approached cautiously. What she saw in it made her step back. The forest behind her was different. The trees in the mirror were blackened, charred. The sky above them was blood red. And her own reflection, it wasn't moving like her. It blinked a beat too late. It smiled when she didn't. And then, behind her mirrored self, a figure emerged. Pale, hairless, with 2 long arms and no eyes. It leaned in close behind the reflection, and Laura could swear she felt breath on her neck. She spun. Nothing. When she turned back, the mirror was gone. Not fallen, not moved, just gone. Her radio crackled again. This time the voice was whispering. The man from the call. They watch through glass. They show you what they want. Don't answer them. Don't let them speak your name. Then, the unmistakable sound of something growling through static. That was when she ran. Branches whipped her face. Her lungs burned. Her legs ached. Time warped, distorted. She passed the same stump twice. She swore the trees rearranged themselves behind her. By some miracle, she made it to her car. It was nearly night. Her arms were scratched, her badge gone, her boots soaked. She filed a brief report the next morning, leaving out everything supernatural. 2 days later, a search team went to the clearing and found a man's body, badly decomposed, lying in a perfect circle of scorched pine needles. The coroner estimated time of death at 5 days before the 911 call was made. His phone was recovered. One image was saved. It showed a blurry figure in a police uniform standing in front of a tall mirror. Only the figure's reflection was smiling. Laura Green never returned to the forest, and she no longer has mirrors in her house. In 2017, Officer Devin Ruiz was assigned to night patrol in a rundown part of central Albuquerque, a district known for petty theft, graffiti, and long-abandoned apartment complexes that housed more ghosts of memory than people. On a quiet Tuesday around 3:30 a.m., a call came in from dispatch. Reported break-in, 612 Rosedale Avenue, vacant building, caller anonymous. Devin recognized the address immediately. The Rosedale building had been condemned for years. Last fire inspection labeled it structurally unsafe. No electricity, no running water, and officially, no tenants. But unofficially, he knew squatters and vandals came and went, and occasionally, thrill-seeking teens dared each other to sleep there. He responded alone, like he always did for low-risk calls. The air was thick with dust when he arrived. His flashlight cut a narrow beam through a building that seemed to groan with every step. The front door was already half open. Inside, the air was stale. Water dripped somewhere deep within the structure. Mold crept up the walls like rot reclaiming its home. Each floor told a story of abandonment until he reached the 3rd floor and saw the drawing. It was on the wall at the end of the hallway, illuminated perfectly in the flashlight's circle. A charcoal sketch of a woman's face. No body, no scenery, just a head, staring directly outward. The lines were precise, the style chillingly realistic. Her eyes seemed too focused, too aware. Her mouth wasn't smiling. It was slightly open, as if she was about to speak. Devin paused. Art in this building wasn't new. Graffiti, messages, sometimes even murals. But this felt intentional. He approached slowly. Underneath the sketch were 6 tally marks, as if someone was keeping count. He radioed in to confirm his position. Static. He tried his phone. No signal. He turned away for a moment, just a second, to glance down the corridor. When he turned back, a second face had appeared on the wall. Lower beside the woman. A child. Same style, same charcoal smudges. Wide-eyed, blank expression. Devin blinked. The charcoal was fresh. Smudges led from the drawing down the wall. On the floor were footprints, barefoot, small, leading away, deeper into the hallway. He followed. Room 3 and 12, the door creaked open. Inside, completely empty, except for a mirror leaning against the far wall and a folding chair facing it. He stepped inside, heart racing. Suddenly, footsteps behind him. He turned, no one. When he turned back to the mirror, he was no longer alone in the reflection. A woman stood behind him, the same face as the sketch. Mouth open wider now. Her eyes locked onto his through the glass. Then, the light blew out. Pitch darkness. He spun, flashlight trembling in his hand, flicking it on again. No one there. The mirror was shattered. The wall behind it had a third sketch. Him, drawn in frantic detail, the charcoal still fresh. Mouth open in a scream, eyes wide with terror. He ran, didn't stop until he burst through the stairwell out onto the street. He never filed the full report, but he took a photo of the original sketch before fleeing. The strange thing? Every couple of nights when he reviews archived cases or visits old calls logged in the system, a new sketch appears in the photo. A new face. Always someone reported missing that week. And now when he sleeps, he dreams of a hallway and a wall that keeps growing longer and more faces appearing on it one by one. The last face? Always his own. You've just crossed the boundary between reality and the unknown. If you felt the fear tonight, make sure to subscribe before you leave, because on this channel every story is just the beginning. New nightmares arrive every few nights, each one darker than the last. Until then, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and your mind open. You are now part of the FearBound family.